Hi everyone, welcome to Click to Learn More, the show that sounds like clickbait.
But it's actually two dorks.
I'm Dorm.
I'm Lidi.
Hi Lidi.
Hi Dorm.
This week, we are talking about something I'm very excited to talk about.
I'm ready.
I'm going to preface this by saying I knew very little about this topic a week ago.
Okay.
This was something that I knew I wanted to do and had a book on it. The book is on the table now. It's called Uncredited. We're talking about opening credits.
Where'd this book come from?
I synthesized it with my being. So we're going to be talking about opening credits. One of my big sources of this is this book. I highly recommend it. It's really cool. I'll open it briefly. I don't want to knock the drink over. It's got a lot of like really cool stills of different opening credits, and luckily on YouTube it's pretty much every opening credit scene you could ever ask for.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So if you see one you like, and you can look it up and watch it.
So we're talking about a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away kind of opening credits?
That is one of the opening credits.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about the history of it.
Ooh.
We're going to talk about a very central... Well, we're going to talk about two people in particular, but we're going to talk about a very central figure in opening credits.
Okay.
And then the time after him.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, opening credits, or... let me get my notes out. Or titles, or opening titles, or title sequences, or... There's a whole lot... Title credits, there's a whole lot of ways of calling what it is. It's basically... Anytime there's an opening to a movie and there's text involved.
Okay.
Is a good way to look at it. Usually it's saying what the cast is, what the title of the movie is, who directed it.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay.
And they can be as simple or as elaborate as you want.
Are they always at the beginning of movies?
So sometimes they're after what's called a cold open.
Okay.
Do you know what a cold open is?
Yes, it's kind of just like a little brief thing that happens before the actual credits.
It's like you start
SNL,
from zero.
like an SNL sketch.
Right, yeah,
before,
that's perfect. That's the cold
credits.
open. Yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes they're a cold open and then it goes in the opening credits, but usually, yeah, it's in the beginning part of the movie. So in general, this is an interesting facet of graphic design.
Okay.
So I didn't know this coming into this. Almost always graphic designers have done this. Even before graphic design was really the name of a job. People with that skill set have always done this. It's not been a film thing. It's always been like... Even print designers were doing it.
Huh.
So Marshall McLuhan, who is an art critic in the 80s... Well, I'm assuming in longer than the 80s, but said in the 80s... in the new visual culture that surrounds us, letters are losing to the image and communicative importance. So that's the thing that opens this book.
Ooh.
So what that means in relation to opening credits is that we are moving away, and I think this is really relevant now. He meant it sort of in the way of video.
Okay.
But especially now with Instagram and Twitter and what Vine used to be and Facebook. I mean, you just look at like the last 5 years, what Facebook posts were mostly memes and text are now videos.
Right.
So his argument was that most designers are going to have to learn a motion element because that is winning away from text.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's interesting to see the two incorporated, and instead of just having a cold image of this is everybody in the movie, it's got to be something fluid.
Yeah.
Like I said, despite the paradox of print designers dealing with motion, it's almost always been a designer's job. No matter if the credit was for, there are a bunch of credits for people who do this.
Okay.
Sign writers, drafters, artisans, titleists, specialists, creditists. There are a bunch.
Okay.
So really all of these things are opening credits people. I'm assuming a specialist meant like an opening credits specialist. Opening credits are kind of lost in the annals of history.
Yeah.
Because they're not... first of all, they're not very well documented because they're in movies and therefore hard to document on paper and design textbooks and things like that. So they're too cinematic to really be praised by the design world. Even though graphic designers did it, it's not really a thing that most graphic designers look at. We look at posters.
Okay.
We know iconic posters like The Thing or A New Hope or The Exorcist or things like that.
Right.
Or even posters that reference the opening credits like Anatomy of a Murder or Vertigo or things like that. But we don't really study the opening credits themselves.
That's true. Kind of, the opening credits are just kind of sometimes in the way of the movie you want to see.
Right.
It's kind of a hurry up and get to it kind of dealio.
And we'll get into that, how that has sort of shifted
Okay.
Soon. But So it's not really studied by graphic designers because until this book, it wasn't very well documented. And it's not really studied by film people because they view it as a graphic design thing. Oh. So it's sort of like in this weird limbo of not enough of one to be the other.
Not quite one, not quite another. Okay.
So I think that's really interesting that no one really talks about it. This is something that you kind of, I figured this out researching it. You kind of have to know what to look for in regards to this as opposed to just Googling and reading. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to be pointed with it because there's not that much on it.
So you have to be kind of specific.
Yes. This book is a great source for me to spring off of, but I ended up finding other resources on like Vice and different places. But I think it's a very underappreciated art form. And so talking about it is really cool.
I think they kind of set the tone for the movie too sometimes, right? Depending on how they flow through the opening scenes, it can kind of set the tone for the rest of the movie.
Right. So uncredited. So the thing I knew coming into this was that Saul Bass, who is a graphic design legend, you know him because you're well-versed in design as well. Saul Bass did the logos for... Hold on, I have a list.
He did a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I do. He did logos for AT&T, the original AT&T logo, the original Way Better United Airlines logo, the Quaker logo, the Lowry logo, which they still use, the Kleenex logo they still use, and this was like in the 50s and 60s.
Okay, I was going to say 60s, around early 60s, mid 60s.
Yes, but his real nom de plume was as the father of credit design, which is what some people refer to this medium as. He really made his mark in movies with posters and with credit design specifically. And this book, so the only thing I knew coming into this was that Saul Bass was probably going to be mentioned.
Right.
This book lists it as before Saul Bass, after Saul Bass.
Oh shoot!
So that's how seminal he is.
So he's a motion within this world.
Yes. Okay. He was doing things counter to what a lot of other people were doing, and by the end of it, people were trying to be like him.
He did that in design as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so. So Martin Scorsese said in an interview, a person can only talk about what they've seen. The movies are like an imaginary museum, and there is so much that there's simply not enough time in one lifetime to see it all. In regards to just movie history in general. I think that quote's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that quote that, someone who is deep into movies, my favorite director, is like, yeah, no, you're not going to be able to see it all. And that's what sort of when they were talking about like how, from my point of view with this podcast and from the book's point of view, was like, there may have been someone in Japan doing it before Saul Bass did it. It's hard for us to access that because of different archives and all that. And we can't really appreciate... We can visually still appreciate some foreign language things, but we can't fully appreciate languages we can't read.
Right.
So this is mostly, unfortunately, English centralist. So that if I don't mention a lot of foreign opening movie credits, that's why. So this is where we get into what I think is maybe the most interesting part of it.
Okay.
Are you familiar with who George Méliès is?
Ooh, I know that name, but I don't know why.
Okay, we'll talk about it. So in 1895,
the
first real movie was shown by the Lumiere Brothers in Paris.
Okay.
So they created...
Lumiere was very important in Beauty and the Beast.
Yes. That same guy. He was, after he stopped being a candle.
Yeah, he was a candlestick.
He cloned himself.
Yeah. Okay.
And then they invented the
And then he had a brother, and then they invented movies. Oh, that's so good. I'm so proud of them.
So they made something called the... cinematoscope, I believe.
Okay.
Or maybe they made the kinetoscope and Méliès made the cinematoscope. There's a lot of scopes happening at this time.
A bunch of scopes.
So what was happening? In Paris, they were working on a motion picture camera.
Okay.
In the U.S., Thomas Edison was working on a motion picture camera.
At the same time?
Yes.
Ooh.
So they sort of were coming to the same conclusion apart from each other. Well, we'll get into that in a minute. So the Lumieres aired this film called...
Good man.
Yes. Aired this film called Workers Leaving the Factory.
Okay.
Which is in French that I'm not going to read.
Okay.
Because I took Spanish in high school. So what they would do in Paris was they would bring in, like socialites and friends of theirs and well-known people. And if you've ever seen the movie The Prestige...
Yes.
Magicians at the turn of the century were very popular people. They were they were figures of the public. This was probably the peak for any sort of stage performance. Like a lot of the early films were of vaudevillian people, and like strongmen, and this sort of like move from the carnival to the stage was really big right now.
Artistry.
Yes. And so George Méliès was invited. George Méliès was an illusionist.
Ooh.
So he actually was one of the perfect people to see this invention for the first time, because in his magic act, he would do a lot of technology-based things for the time.
Oh, that's cool.
There was one thing where he like used a light projection with him with shadows, and he would do like a trick, and then which Penn and Teller do a version of now. And
so
then
it's still used today, that same kind of
the Penn and Teller version is basically like cutting the silhouette of a flower, and then it grows back, and it's really cool.
Neat.
And he also, this is really cool to me, in the 1890s, was using a projector to project images of rain and snow onto the crowd, so it would look like it was raining or snowing.
Oh, that's neat.
So he could, snap, and then the weather was suddenly there.
Oh, that's cool.
So he was one of the perfect people to see this. So he sees the film, right? So he goes up to the Lumiere Brothers, and is like, I want to buy one of these.
Yeah.
And they tell him...
I want in on this.
They tell him no. For two reasons.
Shoot.
One, there's no commercial viability in films. This is
not.
a cool art project, but it's
not going anywhere.
You're not going to be able to make any money off of it.
It's never going to be a thing.
And two, we're not ready to sell. We don't know how to teach this to someone yet. That kind of thing. So he says...
It's in beta.
So he says, okay, I'm going to go make my own. So he makes his own, and I believe that was the kinetoscope. I may be flipping the names of them. He also starts his own film company.
Okay.
Which is the second film company in existence. The first being Thomas Edison's Black Maria, which is the coolest name for it sounds like a Carlos Santana song.
It almost sounds like a snake or
Black
Mamba is where my mind
or like a brouhaha kind of.
Yeah.
Just I love it.
Yeah, it does sound like a Carlos Santana song.
It does.
I like that.
Which he had Maria, which I guess that's
where okay. That's where my brain's going. That's where my brain's going. Okay.
But so Thomas Edison's doing his thing in the States. He did the infamous film of the train coming toward the camera, and he aired it, and the crowd got scared and ran out because they thought the train was coming toward them.
He also recorded electrocuting an elephant.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
Horrifying.
Yes.
And we won't talk about that.
So Méliès calls his company Star Film.
Oh, okay.
Which for a French guy is kind of an English name.
Yeah.
So he calls his company Star Film, and he immediately realizes the marketability of movies. Because he's an illusionist, he knows how you can bring art to money and all of that.
He knows how to get money.
Yes. And so what he does is, in order to make people realize this is a Star Film, he gets a blackboard.
Okay.
And writes in white chalk the name of the movie and puts the logo of Star Film underneath it.
What was the logo?
It was the word star, a star, and the word film. Very simple.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
That's the first opening credit. So that is the
Is that what
origin.
they held in front of the camera?
So they would just set it down and film it, so it just looked like a black background with white text.
Yeah.
George Méliès also figured out pretty soon thereafter that he could have characters say something, and he could write things on that same blackboard, and he figured out narration in silent films, which is why usually when you see silent films, they're black background, white letters.
Yes.
Because they're originally written on a chalkboard.
Interesting. Okay.
So Méliès also, this is a sidebar not related to opening credits, but I was reading a lot about George Méliès, and I almost just did my episode on him. It's really cool. So he has his camera out one day.
Okay.
And is filming just like pedestrians walking on the street. And his camera jams. And so he hits it a couple times, and it starts working again.
Okay.
Well, when he comes back to his studio, whatever, he watches it back and realizes the point where it stopped and the point where it picks up is... So when the point where... As it's coming to the point where it stops, it's just like men and women in like summery clothing, and there's like a trolley being pulled by a horse full of workers.
Yeah.
Then when it clicks, the men and women are gone, and there's a hearse.
Oh, shoot.
Instead of the trolley, where the trolley was. So instantly he realized, I can do editing and I can do illusions with this. So by a mistake, by a fluke, he realizes that he can stop the film and make it show something else.
Within the camera.
Yes. So he figures out in-camera editing.
Very cool.
So then he sort of pioneered a bunch of different things. From masking, which if you're not a designer, masking is just covering something up and then covering the opposites it up and then letting it film. A good example of this would be like filming an open door and on the lens covering the open door, and then the next take doing a double exposure, cover everything but the open door or the doorway, and then film like in the outside so it looks like there's a river viewing through the doorway. Through the door, yeah. He also really sort of pioneered double exposure in film. It had already been a thing in photography, but and if you do that in camera, it's called double exposure. And if you do it post, it's called sandwiching negatives. So he did a bunch of stuff like that, and what he did was he used that early on to film himself doing magic tricks, and then with trickery of the camera would pull it off.
He could sneak his little illusions in
yes.
there. Okay.
A lot of these are available on YouTube for free because they're public domain now.
Because he was a liar.
So they're public domain now, but he did one really cool film that I saw that was referenced in the book because it's the first appearance of like mid-movie text ever.
Okay.
Because he's basically standing in front of a stage and he pulls out a chalkboard and draws himself a little older, then shoves it away, and then he stands real still, and he, like, old him starts slowly fading in, and then it snaps in, obviously, where the edit's made, and then he looks like he's waking up. Now, to us, it's pretty obvious what's happening, but at the time, that's, like, revolutionary.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like us now looking back at a movie from, like, the 70s or 80s and being like, wow, this is really crappy, but at the time, that was, like...
cutting edge.
Yeah. That was fantastic at the time.
So, he does that a couple more times, and then he writes... I think, like... Hold on, I think I may have it written down. It's like, imbecile something. It's basically clown, that he writes down.
He writes, I like big butts.
Yes, in French.
I cannot lie.
And then he becomes a clown, and then he becomes, like, Satan, and then he becomes, like...
Oh, shoot!
So it's a bunch of more quicker edits. There was a lot of, like, magic trick shorts he did.
Okay.
So one, like, where he was taking his head off and putting it on a table, so he was just masking his head out. And it's real obvious what he's doing, but it looks good still.
But at the time, that'd be creepy.
Yeah,
this is the world where people thought that a train was running through...
Right, because they had never seen film before.
Right, where they thought a train was going to hit them in the movie theater. So imagine what they thought if somebody's taking his head off and putting it on a table. Like, that's terrifying.
Yeah, he also did, like, some cool masking with, like, almost like a Wizard of Oz type thing, where his face was real big up here, and then he was down here, and it was like they were talking to each other. And
that's cool.
It's really cool to go back and watch all that old stuff. He did... Cool. So his sort of claim to fame... That was good. His claim to fame is a movie called To the Moon and Back, which...
The Rocket?
Yes.
Okay, that's why I know
Most
him.
people know
that's
because of... there's a picture of a man in the moon, and he has a rocket in his eye.
That's why I know him.
And in the movie, a group of people go up in a rocket ship, land in the moon's eye, sleep under the stairs, fight some aliens, come back, have a parade, and it's over. Yeah. It's like 14 minutes long. It's awesome to watch. I watched that unrelated to this a couple months ago, and it's great. So that was his sort of claim to fame. We're just doing a little bio thing on Jordan Melies.
Oh, that's fine.
Cool.
That's really cool.
So that movie was so popular. Also, it was like the longest movie by a mile compared to other people because he figured out this like loop technique about
because the others were like 10
negatives.
seconds or whatever.
Yeah, they were
right?
very quick.
The horses running or the man sneezing or whatever were all like 5 to 10 seconds long because nobody could figure out how to make them run longer than that.
Right. So I don't know if he invented it, but it was someone's name, loop. Cool. Where you could loop the negatives and film them for longer.
Oh yeah, it's right on the edge of my tongue.
And this film was like, I want to say like, it was 250 feet long or something in film. Like it was crazy. So he also did all of his stages, did all of his costumes, did all of his editing. Yeah, it was all him.
Wow.
So he really fell in love with this, and this movie took off.
He write everything as well?
Yes. Wow. So this was all him. So this movie takes off, so much so that people start bootlegging it.
Uh-oh.
Including, supposedly, Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison supposedly took this movie and said it was his own.
Tommy, no!
Which I think is really awesome, because he's already accused of stealing Tesla's thing. And then here's another example of him maybe stealing something. So he the film with the if you're wondering, the film with like him changing was called The Untamable Whiskers.
The Untamable Whiskers.
Which is very good.
It's very cute.
So George Méliès, if you've seen the film Hugo, which is a Martin Scorsese film, he eventually like runs out of money. just because he was in the midst of a market that wasn't really ready for him.
He was just probably doing too much.
Yeah.
Like, trying to be too extravagant and do too many
and
things.
So by the 30s, I think he's selling like peanuts in the street.
Oh.
Yeah. So you think that's like, because that's how Hugo shows him. You think like, oh, that's a really sad way to end. Well, later on in the 40s, people are chronicling like the history of film then, and they figure out like we need to go find this guy and like honor him.
Yeah.
So they find him, and he gets Paris's highest honor, the Knight of whatever.
What?
So he's knighted.
How old is he at this point? Like, is he?
Oh, he's up there in age.
Yeah.
He's like 70, 80, I think.
He's my age at that point.
Yeah, and so he gets knighted and is presented the award by one of the Lumiere Brothers. So it's all very full circle, which is a nice little cinematic bow to put on that man's life.
So do you think he was just like,
I made money, but then I didn't, so I guess...
And then they had to, like, knight him.
Yeah, I guess we're both right, because I didn't make much money.
The whole time.
But anyway, George Lumiere invented the opening credit, basically.
Okay, so he started this entire phenomenon that we still use today.
Yes.
Okay.
So then comes along a man by the name of Alfred Hitchcock. So titling steadily, I'm not going to get every title that ever existed, but titling steadily grew as a thing.
Okay.
But very like white on black, like I said. Alfred Hitchcock started his career as a titleist.
Oh.
That's actually how he started his career in movies.
I did not know this.
Not many people do. I didn't know it either. But apparently that's like a very unknown deep fact. So he was the first person to really hire notable outside designers to do it because he valued them, because he had worked there.
That's cool.
So I forget the name of the movie. He did some movie in 1927 that he hired like the leading London art director to do the opening credits for.
That's really cool.
So he sort of set the precedent of we're going to get outside designers to do this. I just think that's really cool because I had no idea that's how Alfred Hitchcock did that. He said that a goal of the time was to make a movie with the least amount of intertitles possible, putting more weight on the opening credit. So he said like the optimal movie-going experience was to not really read. So you had to do as much storytelling in the open as you could to not interrupt it with subtitles.
Okay.
Or intertitles, as they were calling it, titles in between scenes.
Okay.
So
get as much out as you can.
So that's why he valued them so much, because he was going to try to use them very little in between. So he said, if I can give a strong opening, then we're good. So David Fincher.
Yes.
We're going to jump ahead. We're going to jump around in time a little bit, but David Fincher has said on opening credits, talking specifically about the Fight Club's opening credit, which we will get into. For prosperity, they're kind of great. If they can help you set the tone, I just want something that starts the movie by going, everyone open your fucking eyes and shut your mouth and get ready, we're moving. If you trip up, we're leaving without you.
If that doesn't say Fight Club.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know
he's very aggressive when it comes to opening. But then he went on to say that he loved Woody Allen's style of opening credits.
Which is
very old school, white on black, Helvetica, like just very simple.
Unassuming and calm. And
because he said that it has to fit the tone of the movie first and foremost.
That's fair, yeah.
So you couldn't put a Woody Allen credit on Fight Club.
Right,
and you couldn't put a Fight Club credit, especially on like Annie Hall.
Right.
That wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah. We were talking about it setting the tone for the whole film, so yeah.
Yes, and one of those people to really set the tone, we'll get into that. So most titles are cast onto the images of the movie as opposed to designing separately in the Hitchcockian era.
Okay.
So in like the 20s, 30s, 40s, there were some specific, like, we're going to sit down and design these titles.
Okay.
And some were more, we've filmed this extra footage so we can just put the titles over top of it. Mm-hmm. And that even persists even through Saul Bass's starting.
Specifically designed just for this section.
Right. A great way to think of it, especially as you're starting to move into color, is like the classic Western horse riding through a Montana valley with everybody's credits up.
Yeah.
There's a really cool credit called The Outlaw that is very indicative of that, but it's done really well. That doesn't mean it's bad.
Right.
It just means that was sort of the popular style at the time.
Kind of a let's get it out of the way and then get the story started.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
So that's actually really interesting. We'll talk about it now. There was a long time, depending on region, where the theaters would not open the curtain until after the opening credit was over.
Oh.
So people viewed it almost like your Warner Brothers or your 20th Century Fox, or like those kinds of production necessary parts that you actually don't want to see.
Yeah.
So a lot of people refer to Saul Bass as opening the curtain because he made people want to watch the opening credits. So yeah, they used to not show the opening credits, so a lot of people would just do as simple stuff as they could to let the projectionist know, hey, the movie's about to start, but this isn't going to be seen by the widespread audience.
Imagine today when it's like 15 logos before the movie actually starts, before the credits actually start. We wouldn't see any of that because it would just be behind.
Yeah, you wouldn't even see like Marvel's cool roll in.
Yeah,
it would just see any of that. It would just be start of the movie.
Huh.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So like I said, in Saul Bass, he was the exception with the Montana Rolling Hills. It started as white on black. Then there was a device called the optical printer, which was made for superimposing images and text onto film.
Okay.
This was perfected by a man named Linwood G. Dunn, whose work can be seen in movies as prosperous, I guess, as King Kong and Citizen Kane. So he was really one of the first to, which I think the original like 30s King Kong opening title is beautiful. It's these huge blocky letters that are just so King Kongian, like they're so good. I love them dearly. I think that's one of the best like type pieces on a movie. Then there was sort of this shift into storytelling with the opening credits. Again, a lot of these things happened fluidly and in jumps of time. So, like, with any kinds of films, like, there were trends, of course, but some people were doing things earlier, some people were doing things later. So, like, Saul Bass did a style that Steven Spielberg replicated. Like, there are things that, come back and forth. Gotcha. So, a good example of, like, the narrative through credits is a movie called Touch of Evil by Orson Welles.
Yes.
I didn't know the film.
Yeah.
But I knew who Orson Welles was. But the opening credit is awesome because it starts with a guy arming a bomb. And by the end of it, the car has crossed. They put it in the trunk of a car. And you're just, like, going through skyscrapers and this beautiful vista. And then, like, you cross the border, the bomb explodes, and the movie starts.
Yeah.
So that's, like, the perfect tone-setting opening credit.
Yeah. And you have to pay attention to what's happening.
Sure.
The whole time.
Yeah.
You want to know more about what's going on in this movie. And you're learning more accidentally.
Right.
In the process.
So then we'll get into Saul Bass.
Okay.
Saul Bass is one of the most heralded graphic designers of a generation. He's an incredible designer outside of credit design, like we said. Here are just a list of movies Saul Bass worked on.
Okay.
The Man with the Golden Arm was like the first real movie that he did the opening credits for.
Okay.
It has some pretty legendary looks. It's all black and white, and there are like white rectangles that kind of shoot through. And I want to say, like, going back and watching them, the amount of like really good animation done by hand is amazing to me.
So it was all by hand at this time?
Yes.
It had to have been,
yes,
right? Okay,
yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So that, like, what we would refer to now in motion graphics as like easing, there's a lot of easing in it, which would be by hand really hard to do.
Yeah.
Because that means you have to move. So easing really quickly is like, if something enters the frame, it can either go a steady rate or it can go like slow down, speed up, slow down, which is how most things normally move. So if you ease something, it looks right. So with A Man with a Golden Arm, there's a lot of easing of these like little rectangle shapes. He did a lot of geometry stuff.
Yeah. I like him for that reason.
But it just works really well. He also did the movie called The 7-Year Itch.
Yep.
Which is
Marilyn Monroe.
Yes, which is kind of like a zanier comedy. And the fact that he could communicate that with these just multicolored rectangles to me is really cool.
Yeah.
He was great at showcasing the tone of a movie through abstract means. I mean, he did that in his logos too.
And he did the posters for a couple of these too.
Yes. Yeah. Man with the Golden Arm and Anatomy of a Murder specifically that I love. Yes.
Vertigo as well. Okay.
The Vertigo poster is one of my favorite posters of all time.
I love that.
He also did, exactly. He also did Around the World in 80 Days, which is like a more illustrative, like kind of cartoons running around sort of thing. So he did a movie called Storm Center.
Storm Center, okay.
Which I would not have picked out had it not been awesome.
Okay.
So I watched these opening credits. So I watched an hour video of every Saul Bass opening credit.
Oh, dang. All
right.
It's
awesome. It's on YouTube. And Storm Center is really cool because it's like this. It's about like a storm center, which is like a news organization dealing with storms. And there's like this. It's a double exposure, so 2 images.
Okay.
And one of the images is like of a newspaper and like the gutter of a newspaper.
Okay.
And the other image is of like people looking around nervously.
Ooh.
So it's this really like tense like
Ooh.
way of
Well, that's a good opening credit.
And so I thought that was really cool and worth a watch. Vertigo is one of his masterpieces of opening credit design. I think that it tells such a story and a tone setting without doing anything, really. Not without doing anything visually, but without spoiling any of the story.
Without giving anything away.
But it also tells you the story in a way. So it's, if you've never seen the Vertigo opening credit, it's people's eyes and different parts of their face and like bright lights. And there are these like constant swirls through different details of them. And then, of course, the swirl becomes the focus. Just sort of this spiraling. Anatomy of a Murder is very similar to The Man with the Golden Arm. It's very...
Sounds like something I'd like.
Yes, it does. So it's very geometric again and it's like different pieces of a body coming in to introduce things, of
love
course.
It.
North by Northwest, which has got
Kanye
Cary
West's
Grant
daughter.
running in. Yeah.
Okay.
Psycho, which is just text, which I love.
Ooh, yeah.
Spartacus, The Facts of Life, Exodus, Ocean's 11, which is one of his best.
Oh, yeah.
With like the big dot 11, that's fantastic. It may be on this cover, actually. Nope. So, yeah, Ocean's 11 is great. West Side Story is really interesting.
Did he do West Side Story? I did not know that.
So the opening credit of West Side Story is just like dots with music and like background color changes. He also did the closing credit, which is awesome because it's like different graffiti on walls and stuff, and it's really, really good.
I love West Side Story.
I've never seen West Side Story, but I loved those credits.
Oh my gosh! Don't worry, guys. We'll sort that out.
Okay.
We'll sort that out.
It's a mad world, which is another illustration one where he's like things are popping out of the screen, like these characters are like, you know, taking a rectangle out and running out of it and all that kind of stuff. My personal favorite movie of all time, Goodfellas, which is a Martin Scorsese film, and it's literally just black with red text, and the text comes on and leaves as car sounds go by. So it's just like, and it's, you know, Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro. It's very cool. Cape Fear, The Age of Innocence, Higher Learning, and Casino, which was his last film, another Scorsese film, the last film he did opening credits for. He has since died, but he was a legend. He also often did posters for the movies he did title sequences for, which was sort of one of the first instances of building like that cohesive brand from what you saw coming in and what you're seeing as you're sitting down.
Did Saul Bass also do the I Love New York logo?
Yes, I think so.
I may be getting that wrong, but for
some reason, it's either him or Massimo Vignelli that did it. For some
reason, that might be wrong. I don't remember, but for some reason, I'm
not sure.
It was him. It's very graphical in that.
Yes, it is for sure. Now I'm gonna just do like a little ode.
Okay.
To Maurice Bender.
Oh,
a name that is barely mentioned.
Who's this?
Maurice Bender did pretty much every Bond film.
What?
From the 60s until 89.
With the, like, gun...
So he invented what is arguably one of the most iconic opening credits of all time.
For sure.
Which is called the barrel sequence. Which I think that's really good.
That's great.
Of James Bond, of the circle coming across, James Bond shooting, the blood coming down.
And a ton of parodies that were born.
Yes. That's another thing. Like, a lot of...
Oh, it's right there.
Yeah, a lot of these are very... very much referenced because they're almost branding for a film, right?
I think that says something too about them, right? Is they're so recognizable that they're being parodied.
Yes.
So if it's turning into a joke, it's because it's something that people would recognize instantly, and therefore you can make a joke of it.
Right.
So that's a parody is almost a compliment to your work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that means it's become popular enough to be parodied.
Which would be kind of memes nowadays, I guess.
My favorite that he did was actually pre-barrel sequence.
Okay.
It's called Dr. No. And it's a lot of geometric shapes, most notably circles. Mm-hmm. And the way he created masculinity and action and speed and violence with just circles is fascinating. Just seeing it from a compositional, I want to see how he did this approach is really cool. He also did other things other than Bond, although that's most notably what he's known for. He also did The Running Man, Charade, and Barbarella, were the three most notable.
Oh yeah,
Barbarella. Of the ones that he was credited for. He's also credited for some god awful films, so he couldn't save them even if he tried. But he was he was the Bond guy from 62 or whatever till 89.
That's super cool.
So in the days following Saul Bass or Solowing, Bass. I didn't write that one down. I thought of it, didn't write it down, and then I thought...
that's not a good catch.
Get it? Bass?
Because bass like a fishy?
Are you playing me?
I hooked you with that one.
No.
I tried to bait you.
I tried to do a bass
I tried to bait you.
Ew.
Normally I'm a masturbator.
All right, everybody, that's been our show. We're going to have a good night.
Sorry, guys.
In the days following Bass, the art form has continued to evolve. Some choosing to pay the most tribute to Bass, like Spielberg did in Catch Me If You Can.
Oh, yeah. Leo DiCaprio.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some choosing to go a completely different route, like Edgar Wright did in Baby Driver. Get it? Route? Because he's driving. It's
good movie. What a good movie.
It is a very good film. So now, I'm just going to get into some of my personal favorites.
Yeah.
Some of which I had never seen before researching this and just was like, this is freaking cool.
Okay.
I've mentioned a couple already, Goodfellas being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn of the Dead, one that I had forgotten about.
Yeah.
This one's really cool because it's, so it starts with just a black screen with red names that are like, sort of being torn apart, but not like over the top. Because you can get really over the top with like gory stuff. And it's just kind of like, they're kind of degrading, interspliced with really quick cuts of loud zombies. So it's just like name falls apart and then like, and then name falls apart and like all that kind of stuff. And then it goes into news footage, fake news footage, obviously.
Aim for the head.
Yeah, and with Johnny Cash's When the Man Comes Around.
Oh,
so it's this really like somber, wild, wild west kind of moment.
Which, I mean, perfectly sets the tone for the rest of the film. You know exactly what you're in for now.
So one of the things Saul Bass said was, you can tell a story, you can set the setting, you can set the plot, but really you should set the tone.
Yeah.
Which is something he tried to do. And you can see that in his opening credits for sure, because a lot of times there's not anything really related to the movie. Like, they could have been designed at the same time.
Yeah.
Giving him the script and then going and filming the movie, you could have them designed at the same time.
Right.
Because it's not just like, footage of lady walking in and the movie starts with Saul Bass's credits. It's usually something else.
Something happening, yeah.
I think one of his best is Casino, just the way he incorporates the casino lights, but somehow makes it like sort of somber and chilling and weird is so good. So a couple, some more of my favorites. Fight Club comes to mind.
Oh yeah,
because Fight Club does one of the coolest pre-reveals. Because it took me 2 or 3 watches to really realize what I was looking at with the opening credits.
Yeah. There's not a lot you could say to me that's not going to make me love Fight Club.
Sure, of course. Fight Club actually is notable for how much money it spent on the opening credits. Do you have any guesses to this?
I have 0 guesses.
So they spent $800,000
just on the credits.
Just on the opening animation. Wow. Yeah. The movie grossed $100 million, so they did okay.
I mean, they made their money
But
back.
Interestingly enough, David Fincher said, if I could go back and say, could I not spend $800,000 on the credits, even though we made $100 million? Yeah, I probably would.
Oh, but that makes me sad, though, because that's such an important part of that movie, and that sets up the tone kind of perfectly.
Yes, and do we spoil Fight Club? No, we don't.
No.
Okay, well, it nods really nicely to the ending. Because it opens with a cold open that is going to come back later in the movie.
Yeah. I love movies with foreshadowing.
Me too.
That's why I love Edgar Wright's, like the Cornetto trilogy, and Shaun of the Dead,
when they're going through the different days.
Yeah, anything with some foreshadowing in it that's gonna kind of give you a hint of what to expect. Fight Club kind of trips you up a little bit and puts you in the shoes of the narrator from the get-go, and you're kind of thrown off guard and you don't know where you are or how to feel or whatever, and that's where the narrator is. So I feel like the tone of that, we were talking about tone, fits perfectly with the credits. So
agreed.
Shut up, Fincher. It's perfect. I'm sorry, Mr. Fincher. I didn't mean it.
You still need to see Gone Girl.
I do still need to see Gone Girl. I don't like Ben Affleck.
It's good. That's good for the plot.
Does he die?
So moving on.
Can't tell me. Spoiler alert.
Deadpool has one of my favorite opening credits.
Yay!
Because it does just enough storytelling.
Oh, I'm so happy. Yes.
It does just enough humor.
Yes.
Because I watched it recently.
Starring God's Perfect Idiot. That's what it says.
Oh, okay.
Starring God's
I thought you were talking about Ryan Reynolds.
Well, that's what it says. It says starring
right.
God's Perfect Idiot. And then it says featuring the hot chick,
a
CGI character, an angsty teen.
That's right.
And then it says produced by some jackasses or whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say asshole, yeah.
Yeah, written by... and then it says, I think maybe it's written by the real heroes here or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, directed by some stupid studio. Whatever. Like, the credits are so... ridiculous.
Sure. So that's part of the humor, but I think it does a lot of storytelling and tone setting again in the very opening.
Yes.
Because I love that, like, you're seeing this freeze frame of the chaos that happens. It almost makes you appreciate the speed of the chaos throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Because you're having a second to breathe. And it's giving you that moment of just sort of calm. I didn't put this in here to please you, by the way. I legitimately love this opening sequence. And watching it again today, I was like, man, this is great. I'd forgotten about how good that is. You take it for granted. And I think that's sort of a through line here, is that you kind of take these seminal tone setters. When they're done well, it's almost like a referee in sports.
When it's done well, you don't notice it.
Right, exactly. Like a good referee.
Yeah. When it's done well, you don't notice that it's there.
Yes.
When it's done bad or poorly, that's when you're like, wow, this sucks.
Yeah.
But like when it's done well, it blends so perfectly into the tone of the movie, and it starts the movie so well that it's not a standalone thing. It's part of the monster. It's part of the entire piece, which is an art form in and of itself, I guess. So I think that's why Deadpool's fits so perfectly.
I was going to say, do you have any more notes about Deadpool?
I have so many notes about Deadpool.
Moving on.
We can't talk about it here.
The Shining, which is one of my favorite films of all time, has what I would call almost a red herring opening, which is... It's so calm.
Yeah.
It's so demure. It's setting this beautiful setting of this lush outdoors that you're never going to see again.
Join us at the Overlook Hotel.
Right. It is this sort of tourist's perspective.
It's where everyone wants to be.
Yeah. Of these beautiful mountains and of this family that seems picture perfect. It almost looks like a TV movie starting.
Right.
Like it's almost cheap to a point of laughability. An
after-school special kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And I love it because... it's this vast open thing, and like you have all the control in the world, and as soon as he's in the hotel, it's gone.
It's over.
It sets the tone in making you completely uneasy.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said it that way. Because I was reading the word ease in my notes.
Centaur.
Uneasy. Yeah, Centaur. So yeah, you enter the setting with the characters, and then are immediately swept away by the beauty of it, and then taken away from it.
The door shuts behind you, and it's over.
Right, and that's it.
Yeah.
Which The Shining is probably going to be a topic of mine at some point. The theories on that movie are buck wild. Room 237 is one of my favorite films.
Yes.
Favorite docs ever.
I would love to talk about that because I have a lot of feelings.
Okay, good. We should watch The Shining before one night and then just start it. Yeah.
I went and actually saw this setup of like people walking on the moon and stuff like that, and they even talked about it there.
Wow, that's cool.
They talked about The Shining there when they was like actual astronaut outfits on space, and it was just like, and also here's The Shining information. And I was like, what?
Because the kid wears the Apollo 11 sweater.
Yeah, so we're don't give anything away. We're going to talk about this later.
Yeah, we should. That would be a lot of fun. We're going to get two Scorsese films here back to back.
Okay.
Raging Bull has a very legendary opening credit.
Yes.
If you may have this is another one of those things that you might have seen parodied. If you're not familiar with it, it's Robert De Niro playing Jake LaMotta, who is a real boxer. Kind of boxing around the ring, just kind of like sparring with nothing. And as he's just moving around sort of frantically, the credits are popping in between the ropes. It was a great example. Apparently that was done completely in post, and
really?
They didn't know that's how they were going to open the movie. As far as opening credits go, they didn't know if they were going to put that credit in that scene or if they were going to start with just a black writing or white writing on a black screen. So it was a
secondary thought? Or?
Yeah, so it was something done in post where they were like, no, we know how to fit it in here.
Huh. Okay.
And I thought that was really cool because that's one of Scorsese's only black and white films.
Okay.
And another Scorsese film, Taxi Driver, which I watched for the first time very recently. A couple of weeks ago, yeah. So Taxi Driver is fantastic. I had never seen it. I'm trying to see as many Scorsese films as I can on different services right now. And the opening of Taxi Driver is great because so many films have set New York City by saying New York City. Or like showing like Empire State Building.
Spoon feeding it to you in some way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this sets New York City instead of being this mecca of entertainment and glowing lights and flashing bulbs. It's sort of the seedy underbelly of New York City.
Yeah. So it's kind of dirty.
It starts with a taxi coming in, and then it's got that steam. Then taxi driver reads in like a terrible font. Yeah. I can't imagine that was totally intentional, but it's not treated well. It's yellow. It's aging.
Yeah.
And then you're sort of seeing the lights and the beauty of New York City through the eyes of Trevor, the character. And so like or is it Travis? It might be Travis. I think it's Travis too. Sorry. But it's like blurry and like looks like it's behind a windshield, and there's rain coming in. It's just making these sort of just grotesque figures out of lighting, and it makes you uncomfortable, which makes sense because he's all about the scum of New York City and all that.
Yeah. And it should.
Yeah. That whole movie should make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Seven is a great example of meeting John Doe through
another David Fincher film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of meeting John Doe through just little details.
That's a good film too.
Seven's amazing. I love Seven.
It's a very, very good film.
So that again makes you sort of uneasy.
Yep.
And uncomfortable.
Yep.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh wow!
Which was an odd pull, but then I saw it and I was like, God, this was great.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah.
So it's written on like food, like plates of food.
Yeah, I remember this.
And something that totally sets it so well is the type of plate they're using, the type of food they're making, and the carpet they're putting it on. Yeah, and then there's the school lunch trays.
Yeah. I totally remember this. This like made an impact on me, and like I'm gonna date myself here.
Sure.
Nobody else will. No, but I'm gonna date myself here. But like we saw it in like high school-esque times, you know? And I remember seeing this and thinking like, I really enjoyed this fast-paced, like it made me care. Like I wanted to see what came next. Because it was so fast-paced and colorful and interesting.
Yeah.
The movie was, you know, hit or miss, but like
I like the movie.
The opening credits, like that was interesting. That was something I wasn't used to, because it was normally just, here's a person's name, now here's a person's name, now here's a person's name, as opposed to this like interactive almost kind of way of showing.
Of course, we've talked about Star Wars, but I think Napoleon Dynamite does a really good job as well with like just setting the tone again, but setting the scene. Setting the time period specifically, like Star Wars does so well.
I mean, you know, it's in high school when you see it. You're like, this is I associate this with this.
It's in some sort of like late 70s, early 80s setting, because
the music,
look at these plates, look at that visuals, carpet, like bright green carpet.
Yeah.
And then they're like in composite notebooks and different sketches and stuff. It's really it's not as appreciated, but I think it's really well done. In the similar vein, Superbad, which I know you're not a huge fan of.
No, I do. I do like it, but I do think that Mean Girls was better.
Sure. So Superbad's great because it does this like completely off the wall thing.
Yeah.
Where it's the two kids dancing to a 60s 70s soul song, and it's a very like 60s 70s looking music video with like them being repeated in different colors, and it's just them dancing. Like it has nothing to do with the entirety of the film.
Yeah.
But yet you still get a sense of what the film's going to be like. It's going to be silly. It's going to be irreverent,
goofy. Yeah.
So I thought that was good. We're going to end on one that I hadn't seen before this. A movie that I'm very morbidly curious about.
Okay.
Lolita, which I've never seen or read.
Okay.
But the opening credit, this was also oh shoot. Oh no.
What? Oh no.
Oh god, I forgot who directed it. 1 second.
Lolita, for people who don't know, I think is it a Japanese fascination that's supposed to be young women in beautiful clothing?
Oh, it was a Kubrick film, duh. Sorry.
Kubrick, okay.
I was trying to think of Roman Polanski and it wasn't him. He was a real creep. That's what I swapped those. So it was a Kubrick film. And Lolita the book is about a man falling in love with, I believe, a 14-year-old girl.
A very young girl.
Yes.
It's a sense of fashion now.
Like Lolita fashion,
yeah.
It's like baby dolls.
It's huge in Japan.
Yes.
People wearing really cute dresses and stuff and trying to look younger.
Yeah.
I'm not going to yuck anybody's yums.
This is maybe the perfect example of an opening credit.
Okay.
Especially with film.
Okay.
Because it is one shot.
Okay.
And it's perfect. It's black and white, and a young woman's foot enters the screen, and then an older man's hand, and he paints her toenails. Now it's perfect because it's sort of innocent in a way where it's like, this doesn't show me anything naughty, but it's also extremely profane, which is like perfect. And then it's uncomfortable without being pornographic. Like it is hard to watch.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it's not lewd. Right? It's not obscene, it's not grotesque, it's just uncomfortable.
To its credit, that's the point.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, to its credit, that's the point of it. I don't have to like it.
No. I don't think you should like it, but I think it works.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it works incredibly well.
Whether or not I agree with it or like it doesn't change the fact that it's incredibly powerful as far as the tone of the film, and whether or not it, actually fits in with the tone and the theme of the movie. So, ew, but I get it.
Yes. So that's it. That's all I have. So that
was very enlightening. I like that a lot.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun assembling this. It was, like I said, it was one of the things that I knew least about. Oh, another shout out. I actually just saw it on the credits or on the cover, but I didn't know about this one either. The Talented Mr. Ripley has an awesome opening credit because it shows just like, it's like the lonely Mr. Ripley, the courageous Mr. Ripley, the charismatic Mr. Ripley. Like it's a bunch of different adjectives, and I think that was really nicely done.
I want to know about your favorite opening credits.
Yeah.
You know that everybody has to have a favorite we
Yeah, of course.
So think about your favorite movie and then think about those opening credits and how that, Deadpool, obviously.
Of course.
But, like we were saying, a good series of opening credits kind of goes unnoticed because it blends in so well.
Right.
And then a lot of credits, I don't know if that's a modern thing, but, like, you don't see them until the end of the film now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of I think Infinity War did that, maybe?
Yes.
Avengers Infinity War, no spoilers. But I think that it just, like, at the end of the film is when you saw everything.
Yeah. Baby Driver is another great example. So they were calling the opening credits of Baby Driver... Oh, and Catch Me If You Can. They were calling the opening credit of Baby Driver where he's going and getting the coffee and all the words are picked
all over the...
Which I thought was interesting because it's actually not crediting anyone, but it's still opening lyrics, words, right? So it makes sense. Yeah. That one's a great one too.
Oh my gosh.
That's a great sequence.
Edgar Wright.
Genius.
I love his stuff.
He's great.
I love his stuff. It's fantastic. Where can they find you?
At Dorm Streams and twitch.tv/dormstreams where they can... Where? Well... twitch.tv/Team Lidi. We also have clothing available if you want to put us on you. We're on Instagram at Dormstreams and Team Lidi. Yes.
We're on Twitter at the same names. We're kind of everywhere,
we're
guys.
Everywhere.
Like, we're all over the place. We're here. We're here. But that was very enlightening. I really like that a lot.
Thanks.
And I kind of want to flip through this book.
It's very
really
cool.
bad. Like,
it's
I've
very
been itching to get through it.
You should.
But that was very fun. I like that a lot. I learned a lot, I feel like.
Good. I'm glad.
I am too. I hope you did too.
Till next time, watch where you click.
Yeah.